Hey guys, this is going to be an interesting video with interesting new insights. Is something going to blow in Ethiopia? A new heat anomaly near the Dofen volcano. And we know we've been focusing a little bit away from the Fentale volcano to the Dofen volcano just recently because the epicenters of the earthquakes and because of this, what you can call the phreatic eruption, like mud pools opening, really stuff spitting out, rocks, hot steam, hot mud. So something was going on in the mountains there. So we have also seen that there's a land rise in the satellite pictures, a significant land rise in a short period of time. And the earthquakes, we know what that means, guys. And experts are saying they think this is magmatic. The origin of that is magmatic. So now there's a heat anomaly. What could cause heat near the Dofen volcano? Magma that is rising up. We will look into this. But also something else that I find interesting is that an earth scientist has given an explanation about the link between these earthquakes in Ethiopia and volcanic eruptions. So we will also look into this, but the heat anomaly, guys, stay with me, stay with this video. It's really interesting. You know, the Afar and the Oromia regions in Ethiopia, they have been hit by several earthquakes and tremors since the beginning of this year, but also last year. But it's like, if you've seen my last video, they kept coming. 5.7, 5.5, 5.0, 4.9, 4.8, 4.5, 5.0, 5.2. So in the high ranges around 5, over 5, a little bit under 5, they kept coming and they were rattling as far as the capital, Addis Ababa. They were shallow, and also people were worried about significant infrastructure, about 2 dams, the Kesson Dam and the Grand Renaissance Dam that is further away, but still could be impacted by these earthquakes if they get higher. Scientists said if it gets in the 6th region. So we had already 5.8 and it doesn't seem to stop. So they are still in the process of evacuating about 100,000 people out of these areas, which is top, super. So they're out of the immediate danger zone. So the strongest one so far, January 4th, 5.8. Epicenter of this earthquake was roughly 142 kilometers east of the capital of Addis Ababa. And Addis Ababa is in the Oromia region. So we have the Afar region, or kind of a province, I think, and the Afar region. And this came just a day after they had a 5.5. So then 2 more quakes over the weekend of January 11th, and then it kept coming. So that's why they started these evacuations, because of the risk of further earthquakes or a volcanic eruption. And the thing is, it's rumbling at the Fentale volcano, it's rumbling at the Dofen volcano, and it's rumbling in between, and there's cracks opening. And that was already last year. Weird stuff happening, sudden cracks were opening. One farmer showed us his field. There were like holes opening all over the place in the fields. And then more earthquakes came. So something's up in this area, and that's why I'm reporting about this on such a regular basis. And of course, you guys are asking me for these updates. So here's a very interesting one today. So Ethiopia is located in a geologically active region. It's the East African Rift system. So earthquakes, but also volcanic activity are common in Ethiopia. This is nothing like, we have a volcano. No, they have quite a few volcanoes there. What they're saying is the current episode of this earthquake activity is being caused indeed by magmatic activity in Oromia and in Afar. So magma, that is just hot molten rock, is intruding into the subsurface beneath these 2 volcanoes, the Fentale volcano and the Dofen volcano. They're quite close to each other. I mean, remember Campi Flegrei and Vesuvius. We still don't know, is this connected? There's been another earthquake swarm. Campi Flegrei, then Vesuvius a little bit, then Campi Flegrei, Vesuvius. Check out my video in the end screen. I've just given you an update. People were running out of the streets again, evacuating their homes. There was 2 big ones, or maybe you could call that 3 big earthquake swarms. So Dofen and Fentale are close to each other. That's why the suspicion is arising when we see these cracks that have opened. Could we see a fissure eruption between the 2 volcanoes? Not like a crater eruption at each volcano, but that fissure eruption would be really, really long. So something way more substantial than we are seeing in Iceland or in Hawaii, for example. So Ethiopia does have around 50 active volcanoes, and most of these volcanoes are in the Ethiopian Rift. So that's the northern segment of the East African Rift system. And what does that mean? Do they erupt all the time? No, but when we say an active volcano, that means that volcano has magma stored deep within its crust, and that magma is waiting, it's filling up, and it could potentially erupt in the future. So magma is accumulating. And of course, they also have evidence of eruptions of many of these volcanoes, of these active volcanoes, but Dofen and Fentale not so much. They have been quiet. They have erupted, but not in their recent lifetimes, so that they really could have a precedent about these volcanoes. If we call a volcano dormant, that means it hasn't erupted for quite a long time, like many hundreds of years, even thousands of years, and they show no signs of reactivation, of waking up, or an imminent eruption, of course. So before I tell you more what the scientist explains between that basically connection of the earthquakes and the volcanic activity, what is that heat anomaly that they have just found near the Dofen volcano? And here are the images that they found. So the heat anomaly is near the Dofen volcano in the Awash region. That's where we have the earthquakes, and that's why this is alarming. If you see the map near Awash, in that area, afar Awash, we have seen all these earthquakes with these higher magnitudes in the recent month. So scientists are quite convinced that this is related with magma coming closer to the surface, magma intruding into the surface, and it has raised the ground by 1.35 meters right now. So that is if you take a very, very long step. So that is a lot. And not over a short or a tiny little area, because that's what's so concerning. No, this area spans about 35 kilometers large. And if it's rising that large, there must be something large underneath that is lifting this ground up. So a magma chamber, magma that is filling up, that is accumulating, and that is lifting up that surface. So something's going on there. You need a lot of stuff that's coming up to lift that up. Is it just gases? Is it magma? Is it hydrothermal? Is it all of it? Scientists make their bets on magma. And magma is kind of the worst case scenario if we think about volcanic eruptions that might occur. So they associate the higher earthquakes that we've seen and that land rise 1.30 meters with a magma that is rising up, that is intruding into the subsurface. So that intrusion, and that's what they're saying, and that is what I find concerning. They say that this has increased the geothermal gradient, and that it has also led to what we have seen in the last few weeks. The unrest at the Dofen volcano, smoke coming out, these bubbling mud pools, these huge cracks opening, and also these phreatic eruptions, and also new hot springs have been formed. There was water coming out. That seems also to have been pressed to the surface, and it also has been heated up. Hot bubbling water and mud pools, and these phreatic steam eruptions that have blown out volcanic rocks and stuff. So great thing is, as we know, there's not many or hardly any permanent seismic stations or any measuring instruments in that area. So we're relying on other countries, on satellite images, and also I've explained how these satellite images can map that land rise. And this is also interesting. With the help of satellites, they were able to do a thermal analysis, and they're using a system that is based in Italy to analyze these pictures. That is called the Mirova system. So we're getting information from other countries as well, not only from the USGS, and there's been some German researchers. So this is actually great that they were able to do this. So this is the first time that they have reported this thermal anomaly, or a thermal anomaly with the help of the Mirova system. Where is this thermal anomaly? The thermal anomaly, if you look at these images, I mean, they say, hey, warning, there could be clouds, there could be fires that could impact the measuring of the temperature, so for that heat anomaly. But it seems there is something present. So that was today. They said this anomaly has an output of 59 megawatt, and that it is coming from an area that is south of the Dofen volcano, so where the volcano is. And it's in that area where we have seen the action in the recent weeks, this phreatic eruption. So it seems that is connected. Makes sense, right? Of course, they still don't know 100% what is the source of that anomaly. Is that magma as well? But you know, if you connect the dots of what has happened there, it is very, very likely. But that anomaly could also be not underground. There could be, this is a remote area, so it's not that you catch everything that's going on there right away. So there could be another hot mud pool, another phreatic eruption going on right now, and nobody's noticing it, especially since right now they have started evacuating the farmers and the residents out of this area. But on the other hand, you know, if it's already erupting like a mud pool or a phreatic eruption, usually they don't create such a strong heat image. Not something like that, what we're seeing there right now. They still call it a moderate heat anomaly, but usually the phreatic eruptions that we've seen there in the last few weeks would probably not cause this. So there must be something that creates more heat. And then magma again comes to mind. What is heating something up on the surface or underneath the surface? Okay. Could we have a wildfire going on there? Like the vegetation that is there, is that on fire? Yeah, could also be the reason for that heat radiation, but they should be able to see some smoke from the satellites, in my opinion, right? So what they're saying is we have to wait for the next measurements to see if that's still there. That gives us some insights, right? But guys, you know, that would be a coincidence if there was a wildfire going on there without a volcanic eruption. What might have caused that then, huh? So my bet is there's something magmatic going on. The earthquakes, the hot phreatic eruptions, the cracks opening up, the land rise. It just makes the most sense, in my opinion. But that's not all, guys. That is not all. Not only have they seen this anomaly, not only have they seen that significant land rise, and you know, I said, our focus has shifted a little bit away from Fentale because it seemed to be so active at Dofen. But keep in mind what I said at the beginning, guys. Could they be connected? Because the land rise spans over such an intense, large area between these two volcanoes. And there was another phenomenon that the scientists associate with a potential, or they think it was a magma intrusion. So they had satellite images that they analyzed and that they looked at, and they said, wait a minute, what's going on there? This is the Fentale volcano, and this looks like there's a steam cloud right over the crater of Fentale. And I mean, if you see that, is that volcanic? Is something coming out of the volcano, or is that just a cloud? So they were checking satellite images of the Fentale volcano. Then they said, okay, as they're saying with that heat anomaly, they said, okay, let's make new pictures in a new time frame, and let's see if that is still there. And guys, it was still there. So that means it was not a normal cloud that was moving away and was moving on. It was still there. So it's at the same spot. So something's coming out of Fentale. But what they noticed, and that is really amazing, guys, it looks like a lake is forming or something, because the edges of it were kind of changing where the steam was coming out. So is there water coming out like it was happening at the Dofen volcano? There was hot water coming out. That was little puddles or larger puddles were formed. So in that caldera that you see here, that Fentale caldera, is there a crater lake that is being formed right now? With hot water, of course, and that's where the steam then could come from. Because imagine that. This is Ethiopia. It's warm. So in order to create some steam clouds, the water has to be very, very hot. And that's then another indication that something is very hot underneath the caldera of Fentale. This is also not good. And if we add that together with what's happening at the Dofen Mountains, at the Dofen volcano, and in between, it is concerning. Because gradually we see more and more stuff. Like they did at Dofen on January 17th, they did also discover a heat anomaly there. Didn't last long, but they saw something there. So do we have a final explanation for everything that is going on right now between and with these two volcanoes? No, we don't. But the earthquakes keep coming. I'm just waiting, that they can confirm there's volcanic gases, there's sulfur dioxide coming out from the Fentale crater. That would give us more indication. I mean, we know there could be fumaroles forming. That doesn't mean that there's an imminent eruption. But again, the land rise and the earthquakes are there. Plus all the other phenomenon, everything in the recipe that you need to create an eruption. But let's get back to find an explanation for this. So why have these earthquakes sparked fears of volcanic eruptions? Although they're both natural phenomena that are driven by processes that are shaping the Earth's interior and the Earth's surface in that area, and of course all over the world. It's happening all over the world. And here is the connection. What is happening with these earthquakes so that we could see an eruption? If we look at the Earth, you look at the outermost layer of the Earth, that is called the lithosphere. So that consists of solid rock, and it's broken into large sections. That's what we call the tectonic plates. And if you think of a jigsaw puzzle, this is how these tectonic plates fit together. And there's a more fluid layer beneath these tectonic plates that causes them to slowly move on top of that fluid layer. And that is called the asthenosphere. So now we're while we're learning about earthquakes, we're learning about the whole ball, which is interesting. I hope you find that interesting, guys, that I'm going a little bit more in depth of what is really going on. So there's convection currents in the Earth's mantle that are driving the movement of these tectonic plates. They're moving around. So what we're looking at for earthquakes, we're looking at the edges of these tectonic plates, right? So how do they interact at their boundaries? They interact basically in three primary ways. They move apart, they collide, or they slide past one another. If they collide, it's a subduction zone. If they move past another, they slide past another. So these interactions that these tectonic plates are causing, they produce geological activity, including the earthquakes and the volcanic eruptions. So most volcanoes and most earthquakes, they occur along these plate boundaries where this stress and the movement of the plates cause the lithosphere to fracture. And that fracturing is causing the earthquakes and makes room for magma to come to the surface. Magma's always looking for the easiest way to come to the surface. And if something that keeps the lid on is fracturing, well, wow, it can come up. Look at a pot. You're cooking hot water and you put a lid on, right? The water starts boiling and it wants to come up. So if you put a hole in the lid, steam comes out. It's trying to come out. Many processes that are associated with volcanoes can generate these earthquakes. Doesn't always have to be magma alone. That's why earthquakes are a common feature in volcanic regions. But if we have more clustered earthquake swarms, plus these other inputs like the land rise or thermal anomalies, fumaroles, stuff like this, we should be on alert. You know, this whole activity before a volcano erupted can take days, weeks, months, years. In Campi Flegrei, it's already been years since this bradyseismic activity is happening, where the land is rising, causing these earthquakes. They call this bradyseism. So if the magma is moving beneath the surface, if it's rising up from a deeper depth, and if it's filling up, accumulating in one spot, it causes the earthquakes because it's fracturing the ground and it's displacing the rock because it's moving, right? It's like I always say, it's like a miner that is building a tunnel. The miners are using explosive and they're hacking, drilling, stuff like this. This causes rumbling. You feel it. If that magma is rising from deep within the earth, it puts a lot of pressure on these caprock layers, on these rocks that keep the lid on. And the moment these rocks crack, they release the seismic waves. So these earthquakes are telling us it is cracking. And at Campi Flegrei, they're saying the last magma intrusion they had in the 80s with this bradyseism didn't erupt, but it intruded. Magma was rising up. Since then, that caprock layer that keeps the lid on has lost 2/3 of its stability. It has only 1/3 left to keep the lid on. That's why Campi Flegrei worries me a little bit or a lot. And the scientists that are in place monitoring this thing are also worried about this. So what are we currently observing at the Dofen volcano and at the Fentale volcano and in this region? Magmatic activity is generating sustained seismic activity. So when a local scientist was asked about the region, what could the country do to mitigate the risk of potential volcanic eruptions in this area right now and in the future? Because of course, it's a densely populated area. It's not as all flat land and farm, it's densely populated. So volcanic eruptions and the earthquakes, they pose risks to human lives, to infrastructure and the environment with gas pollution and stuff like this. Of course, For now, maybe in the future, but for now, we cannot prevent these events. We can just react to them and hopefully work on predicting them. It's not possible right now. So the effects of these earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, they can be mitigated a little bit by planning and acting ahead of time. So evacuating, for example, like they're doing it right now, is a very, very, very good thing. So they need monitoring and they need early warning systems. That is critical. So the current magma intrusion that we're seeing right now it's being tracked by satellite, by remote sensing observations through satellites from other countries. Some seismic data from Ethiopia's national but also international seismic networks. And of course, they need more instruments. The instruments that are being used, of course, right now already help to detect changes in seismic activity, ground deformation, but they don't have these sensors on the ground. They're using the satellite images. It would be good, like in Iceland, for example, to have something on the ground to confirm the uplift, say some more in the east, more in the north, tilting to that direction. Because changes in seismic activity, changes in ground uplift often come before volcanic eruptions. And it's overall, right? There's not too much data from these two volcanoes, because usually earthquakes, yes, they do have that. So if you study past earthquake and volcanic activity, either from historical records that they have or geological records, anomalies that the geologists did find, it can help the scientists to understand how often these eruptions or earthquakes occur and what kind of magnitudes and sizes. Also, what scientists are saying is essential for this area. They need detailed maps that identify areas at risk. These maps are essential because they guide not only evacuations, but urban planning. This is very, very important. Like also infrastructure development. Does it make sense to build such a massive dam there? Or to what seismic standards should that be built? But also, where would they build? Hospitals, schools, water supplies. Because if it's a high-risk area, they need to be prepared. They're still reluctant to declare this whole area as an active seismic area, because I said it in my last video, that would have large economic implications. They just built the train between the port and the capital, and there's basically only one major highway that connects this area as well, and they both run along each other. So if that's declared an active seismic or volcanic area, that could have economic implications for the whole country that are not wanted right now, for sure. They're never wanted, but it's already tough for Ethiopia right now. But also they need a better network and communication between scientists. That's what scientists are criticizing. So communication between the scientists involved that are managing the crisis, because it is a crisis right now, and between the authorities that are making the decisions, and of course the general public needs to be educated as well. But what I think is really going great, if you think the little infrastructure that they have there when it comes to surveilling this thing, that they did start the evacuation. So what scientists want for that area, they're saying we must establish early warnings and clear communication protocols in order to get information quickly to the affected populations, to warn them. So they say alerts can be delivered through different means like mobile apps, text messages, radio, public announcements. I mean, look at Iceland. They're pretty good at this. It's not many people that they have to evacuate, but sirens, probably not possible in this area. It's too big. Infrastructure-wise, just not possible. So they have used so far in Ethiopia mainstream media and public announcements to convey critical information to the public. But how do you do this to these remote farmers? It's not that the whole population does have cell phones, but Still, scientists are saying we need to use more modern technologies like mobile phones, mobile platforms, localized text-based systems that could make the crisis communication even more efficient. And they need to do more community preparedness and community education. They say there's still a lack of that. So they need to do regular earthquake drills, help individual school workplaces prepare for earthquakes, but also volcanic eruptions, and explain to them what could happen. Lots of the population doesn't really mean what these cracks opened. Oh, there's a fountain of hot water coming out. We've seen videos and pictures of residents running around between these phreatic eruptions or these hot mud pools. A crack can open at any time and swallow these residents. It's highly, highly dangerous. So more education needs to be done. Theoretically, in Ethiopia, it's the Disaster Risk Management Commission is responsible or is supposed to operate preparedness systems across the country. But the scientists are saying we need to learn more from global best practices. We need to look at other countries and copy their systems. Japan, for instance, right? Has a very, very good system. They have developed a robust disaster preparedness culture. And they have to, because they're hit by these earthquakes all the time. So that has helped Japan to reduce the impacts of these natural hazards that they can't prevent. So they have routine drills, they have widespread education programs, and they have active community engagement. And I think the people that live in the affected areas in Ethiopia right now, I think they're ready to learn more about that. I think they're taking this serious because it's important. You have to educate villages, communities about the science of volcanic activity, that they understand what is this, evacuation routes, emergency protocols, so that they can act quickly and appropriately. Where to run right now? Don't run in the wrong direction. Also, what the scientists are saying, what they need for that area, that the government and aid organizations, they should maintain reserves of emergency supplies for the worst case, such as food, water, medical kits, and shelter materials to meet the immediate needs of locals should they have to be displaced or affected by natural disasters. It's the same thing right now, evacuating over 100,000 people. They need to be housed somewhere. They need water, food. What the scientists want in that area, they say we need specialized response teams that do have expertise in volcanology, seismology, and disaster management. They need to know what they're doing so that they can take swift and coordinated action during emergencies. Because there could be an emergency in the work right now. Also, they're saying we need stronger infrastructure. We need better long-term planning for land use. That is also a key. Because all these measures all together, we know that it can greatly reduce the harm that volcanic eruptions and earthquake-related activities can cause. And it's still bad enough. If you look at Japan, the recent earthquakes, it's still bad enough. So I will monitor this for you guys. The seismic activity is continuing, the land rise is continuing, the thermal stuff, if that is continuing, I'll let you know. So it's a critical area that we need to monitor, and I hope you are interested in what I'm telling you. And if you are, please leave this video a like, share it with your friends, leave it a comment, and if you want to support the channel, it would be greatly appreciated, guys. Sign up for free at my buymeacoffee.com/silky site. Doesn't cost you anything. If you want to support the channel there, you can buy me a coffee or more. Would be greatly appreciated, of course. Thanks so much for that, guys. You're great. You're already doing that. It helps so much. And for those of you who know my channel, it all goes towards Apollo's cancer treatment. Right now, the bills still keep coming, plus more other stuff keeps coming. So it's greatly appreciated. And I hope to see you very, very soon. If you want to become a member of this channel, it's also interesting stuff behind the scenes. Check out my playlist, the videos for my members. And if that is something that speaks to you, where you think, I want to know what she's doing there, click the join button underneath this video or just scroll up And there's all the links in the description for the Buy Me a Coffee site, for the membership site. So I hope to see you there. Stay safe, guys. Stay warm. It's cold in a lot of regions in the US and Canada right now, and also Europe. So yeah, stay safe, stay warm, be prepared, and come back to this channel. Subscribe. Bye-bye.